Sidney Stewart could be the next star for Maryland football.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Maryland Sidney Stewart could be the next star for Maryland football. So there's been a lot of talk at camp, a lot of talk about this kid, Sidney Stewart, and I think it might be the most interesting, intriguing, whatever words you use, storyline about camp that's not like your headline type of thing. Like it's not like a quarterback thing where it's like Malik Washington focus, really just that. So I think this could be the next kind of most interesting thing that I've read about, and it's something that's becoming more and more clear that Sidney Stewart might just be the next star for Maryland football, and it's honestly a surprise. I don't think anybody coming in to this year, really, before we really got into stuff, expected Sidney Stewart, the freshman edge defender, to be a guy for us. I think we thought he was a decent recruit. He was a guy maybe got under-recruited a little bit, but maybe at best he would work his way into the rotation. But we're seeing a guy, according to the reports, I do want to emphasize that. According to reports, we're seeing a player that's coming off the edge and is the best guy for Maryland's defense. Like I've seen different rankings, I've seen different articles that say Sidney Stewart has arguably been better than anybody at Maryland football camp, better than any other defensive player. Like he's been at that type of level. And I think it's a big surprise. He came in as a 3-star rated guy. He was ranked as the 41st player in Maryland. So it wasn't like he was like a top 10 player in Maryland or a top edge in the class. Like this kid was pretty in the back end of being a 3-star at 6'2", 255. He's listed on at 247. I'm sure they have something different on the website. Went to Concordia Prep. Has been playing like arguably the best Maryland defensive player that we have. And I think it's a really interesting part of this. I think it's really interesting to kind of see a guy like this playing at this high of a level, because I've said it for the last couple of years for Maryland football. I've said we don't really have, it feels like we don't have, under the Locksley era specifically, we don't have good pass rushers. We haven't had any guys that I'm like, yeah, I feel really good about him getting pressure on the quarterback. Or, yeah, that guy's an all Big Ten pass rusher. Like, I can't name very many guys over the past couple of years that come to my head that I'm like, yeah, he was a really good pass rusher. I mean, we had Chop Robinson. You guys have to remember that. We did get Chop Robinson, but when he really took off, when he really became that top-end type of player that he is now and that he was at Penn State, was really when he got to Penn State, and less so when he was at Maryland. Yeah, he had all the talent in the world, being a 5-star and all those different things, but I haven't seen a consistent pass rusher come through Maryland and really be that guy. And I think it's hurt us. It's hurt us a lot, because I feel like teams on third down don't have to worry too much, like 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and long situations. You guys know the deal. You want your pass rush to be a really hard group to go against, that in those situations that you don't want to be in against a Maryland football team. But it feels like teams have probably felt fine back there, and quarterbacks have had a lot of time, and a lot of our blitz leaders, a lot of our sack leaders comes from linebackers blitzing, like inside linebackers blitzing, or those types of stuff where it's more schemed. But I want to see a guy that can actually win a 1v1 battle against a tackle and create pressure consistently, where teams either have to draw up game plans or they just have to live with the guy, because right now, I just feel like we haven't had that. And I don't know if you guys are thinking of a guy that I'm just not remembering, but let me know down below. I don't remember the last time like Maryland's pass rush was really good. And going into this year, I honestly thought it's probably going to be more of the same. I think I like different players. Like I like Neo Avery and what he potentially can become. I like the kid D.D. Holmes that we just picked up. Obviously, I like guys like DJ Samuels, Sidney Stewart, who we're talking about now. Like I like some of those players, and we have some of those outside linebacker types like a Trey Reddick that sometimes will go get the rusher. Like there's guys that you're like excited about. I like 4-star Zahir Mathis a lot, maybe more than anybody on this team going into the year, more than Sidney Stewart, more than basically anyone, his 6'6" frame and what he can do. But to me, we just going into this year, I was like, okay, like I like guys, but I don't feel great about them. Like I like some of their potential. I like some of the rushers. And in the past, when Maryland had guys like that, nobody really come together to be like, yeah, he's a really good pass rusher. Like, yeah, he's going to get to the quarterback. And it sounds like to me, Sidney Stewart looks like he could be that guy. Looks like he might be that guy for Maryland football. And so it was interesting because it was yesterday, they came out with something on their Instagram. It was like players, it was like freshmen to watch or something together. So it was something interesting that came out yesterday on Maryland football's Instagram. It was like freshmen to watch, and it was Malik Washington and Sidney Stewart. So that tells me something. Yeah, freshmen to watch. It was Big Ten freshmen to watch, and it was Sidney Stewart and Malik Washington. So that tells me something, that Sidney Stewart has been tearing it up. Because you don't get freshmen to watch as a 3-star, a back-end 3-star rated prospect. With Maryland, if you go down the list, there's plenty of 4-star types of players to choose from. And in the Big Ten, there's plenty of 4 or 5-star types of guys to look at that potentially could be that. So you don't get that type of rating, or you don't get that type of award, that type of status, unless you're playing at a certain level in camp where people are hearing about you, coaches are talking about you, and it's a clear kind of obvious thing that it's like, yeah, this guy might actually be a really good player. So I think there are some interesting parts of this that a lot of people don't realize about this Sidney Stewart kid. I think he's going to fly under the radar a little bit, but articles are saying he's going to start day one. They're like, there's no way this kid doesn't start day one. So in terms of me predicting the kind of season he can have, I'm going to say he's going to be our best pass rusher right now. Based off of what everyone's saying and the hype that is along with this guy, I'll say he's going to be our best pass rusher. Now, he's still a freshman, and we don't play some of those elite offensive line in the Big Ten like you think of a team like Oregon. They might have one of the best offensive lines in the Big Ten. Ohio State's always going to have dudes up front. Penn State, I think I heard Penn State actually arguably has the best offensive line in the country. I was listening to something earlier. So we avoid a lot of the top offensive line. We're still going to play quality offensive lines. Like Wisconsin has a tradition of having good offensive line. I know Illinois going into this year has a really good team. Like we're still going to play good lines and good quarterbacks that can escape and all of that. But I do think this is a good year for Sidney Stewart to ease into it and potentially put up some stats as well. So I'm not sure he's going to come in and tear it up. Like I doubt that happens, but I do think he's going to show a lot of flashes, and it's going to be clear this kid going into sophomore year could be an all Big Ten player going into his sophomore year, like in a preseason all Big Ten type of player. And it's going to be clear that he's one of our top defensive players. He's going to be our top edge. If I had to predict a stat line for Stewart, maybe I'll say 3 or 4 sacks throughout the year, but gets somewhat consistent pressure, looks really good for a freshman and looks better than anybody that we've had. So I think this kid is the definition of what you want to do when you're talking about a program like Maryland football. You want to find some of the diamond in the roughs. You want to find guys like this that not everyone knows about, that isn't a 5-star prospect, but is still going to be a really quality player. Might not be 6'5" and look like Zion Ealy exactly, but he's an untraditional kind of build that is going to be able to get things done. So I do think this is an interesting type of thing for Maryland football, and I guess we'll see exactly how it's going to work. But I do think this is going to be something that we look at the end of the year, and we're like, Sidney Stewart's our best pass rusher, and I do think he's going to start. There's other guys, like I said, that are definitely going to be in position to play. Like I've heard good things about Zahir Mathis as well. Like Zahir Mathis is definitely going to be in the rotation, and that's your future right there. If Sidney Stewart hits, if Zahir Mathis hits, and then you have Zion Ely coming in the next year, D.D. Holmes as well could be part of Maryland for a little bit. There's a core there over the next couple of years where we can finally see that actually working out, that our pass rush is actually coming together and becoming something. I do think that's definitely a possibility. We know what Zion Ely potentially brings. So we'll see exactly what actually ends up happening. But this could be the future. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Sidney Stewart does. We'll see what he does in the non-conference game. If he gets a sack, I'll predict it. I'm going to say first game of the year, Sidney Stewart's going to get a sack. We'll see if that actually ends up happening. But those early games are probably where you want to pat your stats the most before we get into Big Ten play. But I'm really intrigued by the kid having a 3-star type of prospect that not a lot of people knew about, potentially being our best pass rusher. And I think he'll develop into a star throughout his career at Maryland, just based off of what I'm hearing. I don't want to crown him. He hasn't played. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. This is just reports, but I'm just starting to believe it because there's just too many people talking about it. There's too much things going out. So I'm looking forward to it. And remember, I do think that all that freshman players to watch, Big Ten, whatever they want to call it, the fact that he's on that is really, really interesting. So we'll see what happens. He could be our most impactful freshman if Malik Washington doesn't end up starting the year, but I expect Malik Washington to start. So we'll see exactly what happens there. Ryan Manning in the receiver room. I think I'm reaching some conclusions based off of Maryland's scrimmage and how that rotation is going to look. We'll talk about that next. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-time one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in your control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked my bank accounts and my finances to Monarch Money and instantly saw where I was spending, different places I need to cut back on, different subscriptions I've had, and it really helps. So don't let the financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use Locked On College at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. Let's talk about the Maryland receiving room. I think we kind of found out who our third starter is going to be. So it sounds more and more like through the camp and through the reports that Ryan Manning's killing it. He's always open. He's a guy that the quarterbacks love to throw to. So it sounds like Ryan Manning is going to be that third starter, which honestly to me makes sense. I think out of all are two guys that are going to play a ton for Maryland football. Like those are your next two guys that are up when we think about Maryland receiving rooms over the last couple of years. Like those two guys are your guys. Like they've always been, they've always had guys that have played at a high level. Last year, obviously, Ty Fell and Caden Prather. Like that's your Ty Fell and Caden Prather. Jaleel Farouk and Octavian Smith. We always have good receivers. Those are your two. And so I think that Ryan Manning, it sounds like in camp, is always open. And honestly, to me, I really like Ryan Manning. I really like Ryan Manning. I thought he was going to be a really good player for us. I always thought he was a little bit underrated as a recruit. I thought he was a good player. Didn't play a ton last year, but played a little bit. We got to see him in spots last year. He appeared in 7 games. He had 3 passes for 28 yards. So he played a little bit. I think when you look at him coming out of school, I just thought he was going to be, or coming out of high school, coming from St. Francis, his profile as a player, I thought he was going to be a pretty good player. Like, I thought he kind of fits that, like, not necessarily a freakish athlete or the biggest guy. He's just going to be open, though. At 5'11", 190 pounds, like, I just thought of a guy that isn't the most big guy ever, but is going to be always open. And I think that's your starting 3 receivers for right now. I think Jaleel Farouk, Octavian Smith, and Ryan Manning are the 3 guys to look out for. I think those are the 3 guys that are going to headline this receiving room, and those are your 3 best players right now in the receiving room. And I think in terms of polish and what he can bring, I do think he's better than Caleb Webb and Mekhi White and Shalik Knotts. I think he's more polished. I think some of those other guys might have a little bit more talent. Like Caleb Webb might have a little bit more talent. Mekhi White has the size factor, but I do think Ryan Manning, when Malik Washington's back there, is just going to be open over and over and over again. And it just works, especially for a young quarterback. And I like those 3 together. My only concern is Octavian Smith is a little bit of a smaller body, as well as Ryan Manning. Can Octavian Smith play the outside? Like, does Octavian Smith want to play the outside? Can Ryan Manning play the outside at all? Like, I totally expect Jaleel Farouk to play outside for a lot of the year, but that's my one concern about it. And I think other guys like Mekhi White and Caleb Webb and Shalik Knotts fit better on the outside. But I'm excited to see what Ryan Manning can do. I do think it's a breakout year for him. I think he's going to have probably 300, 400 yards on the year, similar to how Octavian Smith was last year in being that 3rd receiver. I do think he can do some high-level things. I think he's an underrated type of guy, but I think going into this year, it's going to be the Ryan Manning. I think it's going to be a big part of it. It's going to be maybe a Ryan Manning show. It sounds like he's just been making big plays down the field deep consistently. So we'll see how he actually ends up coming together. We'll see how he actually looks when we start the season. I do expect through those 3 non-conference games for Maryland to rotate a lot of guys through versus FAU, Northern Illinois, and Towson. I expect Maryland to play a lot of different bodies. We know Maryland likes to do that before kind of figuring out who are our guys. Like, it kind of felt last year we rotate a little bit in the receiver room, but we had a pretty good idea. It was really a lot of the time it's going to be Octavian Smith on the field with Ty Felton, obviously, and Caden Prather, because those 2 guys were just too good to take off the field. But this year, I don't know what the situation is with the receiving room, how much we're going to rotate. I think early on, I do really still like Mekhi White. I think Mekhi White can really kind of propel himself into position to play a lot on the outside, especially if Octavian Smith wants to be more of an inside guy and kind of share that with the Ryan Manning. I think Shalik Knotts is interesting. It sounds like I haven't heard anything about Shalik Knotts this whole camp, and I think a lot of people expected it was like always him and Octavian Smith linked together in that same class. Shalik Knotts was a 4-star rated prospect. A lot of people liked him coming out, but he's kind of just it feels a little bit like he's just kind of like behind. Didn't get the polish that he needed. So is Shalik Knotts going to play? I don't know. Like, I assume he's going to play some. He had all the traits when I would watch him. He had all the things that you would want in a player, but it doesn't sound like maybe it's clicking. I don't know the deal with Shalik Knotts, to be completely honest. I don't know what's going on with him, why it's not working, why things aren't coming together, but it sounds like Ryan Manning has figured it out. And I know Ryan Manning put in a ton of work in, so good for him. But sounds like I know they have a depth chart usually, and I bet Ryan Manning is 3rd on that list. Just the way he's playing, the way things are coming together. Caleb Webb's also interesting. I think he also could play. I haven't seen all these guys play. So I kind of don't know exactly what's going to end up happening. That's why I'm kind of just ready for the games to start. It's like a lot of guessing with this roster, where last year was a little bit more firm, but it'll be exciting when it comes together, and I'm excited to see kind of what happens with it. But I do think there's still a lot of opportunity for everyone in that room. I think it's a tier type of thing. I think Jaleel Farouk, Octavian Smith, tier 1. Tier 2, I would say Ryan Manning might be on a tier of his own right now. And then Tier 3, I would guess, is Caleb Webb. And then as well as Mekhi White, maybe Shalik Knox. And then a tier after that is some of these other guys that haven't played a ton. So we'll see. Maryland's offensive line is struggling. Why is this a big concern heading into the year? We'll talk about that next. So Maryland's offensive line has actually reportedly struggled, and the defensive line has beat us up. And I think there's a concern for a couple different reasons. We're going to be starting whoever the quarterback is. It doesn't matter. We're going to be starting a new guy at quarterback, and it's going to be a guy that doesn't have any experience playing college football. Doesn't really have any. Like Justin State taken a couple snaps. He's played a little bit, but hasn't been a real starter in college football. Like that's the most experience we could have. Christian Martin hasn't played. Malik Washington, obviously the 4-star prospect. We believe in him, and we think he's going to be a really good player, but he hasn't played college football. And the fact that our offensive line is struggling in camp versus a Maryland defensive line is definitely concerning, to say the least, because if we don't have any type of – if there is one thing on this team that I really want to work out for that quarterback play, it's not the receivers necessarily. It's the offensive line. And if we don't have any experience back there, I just don't know how that's going to look. Like Malik Washington, we love the kid, but how good can he be with guys all over him all the time? I still think he's going to show some it traits and make some big-time throws and different things like that. But just how good can Malik Washington be when there's consistent pressure and he hasn't played college football yet? Like that's not something that can happen. And thank God he can run. All these guys can run and all those different things. But I just think it's going to be really hard for any of those guys to adjust if they don't have time in the pocket. If they don't have time to process. If they don't have time to look down the field, different things like that. Like I just don't think it's going to go well. And when you talk about the receiving room, I like some of the talent there, but are we going to be able to get things going? Are we going to be able to throw the ball down the field a little bit? I don't know if we just don't have the time. And I think this happened a lot last year. I think we're still kind of don't really know how good Billy Edwards could have been and how good he's going to be at Wisconsin, because we saw Billy Edwards play at a high level at certain times, bad at other times. But the offensive line was just so dang bad last year. I thought it was one of the biggest reasons we just couldn't win games. It was just so bad. Couldn't block for Billy Edwards, consistent pressure. And yeah, Edwards held on to the ball too long sometimes, but it was clear he didn't trust that offensive line. And so I think that's something that needs to get straightened out. I've had the prediction of it being better this year, and I think the next level to this is the fact that Maryland's defensive line is dominating our offensive line is a little bit concerning. A little bit concerning, because we're going to be brutally honest. I don't think anybody's here is gushing over the Maryland defensive line. I don't think anybody in the country has said a thing about Maryland's defensive line. Besides me talking about Sidney Stewart in the first segment, I don't think anyone has been like overly excited about the players on Maryland's defensive line. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think this Maryland defensive line is like something crazy with NFL guys littered all over. And it's like, okay, Maryland's offensive line is struggling. Like, it makes sense. Maryland's defensive line is really good. And the thing that concerns me is a lot of these guys are back from last year. So you would expect them to actually playing at a decent level at this point, because a lot of that line is back. So I don't know exactly, but we're going to need to get that straightened out, because I can't watch another year where we cannot protect, we can't run block. And that's a whole nother dimension I didn't talk about, the run blocking. That's something. So it better get straightened out, but apparently it hasn't been good. But that's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.
You are Locked on Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.